Good afternoon, everyone. This is attorney Ahmad Yakzan from the American Dream Law Office. I am live on YouTube and Facebook today, not just on TikTok, discussing some major developments when it comes to immigration processing and things that you need to do these days for your case not to get denied. So your entire immigration case, your green card, your visa, your future in the United States has changed. Your chances has decreased because the government has changed its way of processing cases. So you need to make sure that you put everything in that file for you to be able not to get denied, for the case to actually move forward. Since January 2025, my practice has been getting a lot of things that honestly we never used to get. Them changing the forms without telling anyone, them changing payment methods without telling anyone. So when you understand all of these things, hopefully you will not get denied right away. My name is Ahmad Yakzan. I'm an immigration attorney. I'm bringing this urgent alert because the rules of the game have changed a lot. Safety nets used to be there to ensure due process, to protect your rights as a person in the United States applying for a benefit, or if you're applying outside the United States for a different type of benefit. The rules of the game have changed, and honestly, if you don't stay in touch with all of these things and keep being appraised of these things, it's going to have a detrimental effect on your case. Now, I am not tooting my own horn here or anything, but I just got a phone call from the BBC, and they're running a story about something, and the lady literally Googled an expert on immigration law in the Tampa Bay area, and my name came up first. So trust me, I know how to do these things, and I've done only immigration for the last 5 years, 15 years. I apologize. So for 15 years, I've been doing nothing but immigration law. So what you get from me is not legal advice, because you have to worry about people who are different things happen to different people. So please don't take this as legal advice. Don't apply it to your own case without speaking to an attorney. But if you are applying for an immigration benefit, and I tell this to everyone, when I applied for my green card and when I applied for my own citizenship, I hired an attorney to go with me. Even though I'm an immigration attorney, I actually had someone go with me to at least be a witness on the things that are happening. And on those days, the green card came in the mail. If you applied as an immigrant who is here in the United States as a beneficiary of a work petition, they would have given you mailed the green card to you. They don't do that anymore because they're literally interviewing everyone. Even if you have a petition from an employer, they're interviewing everyone when you're applying for a benefit. Also, you're going to run into a lot of delays these days because we have those 76 countries that are experiencing delays now because of the executive action that President Trump took. It's going to be a huge issue. So if you don't hire an attorney to go with you, you are going to be at a disadvantage. You would be surprised. You'll be surprised the amount of people that we get that I'm doing an EB-1 on my own, or I'm doing a national interest waiver case on my own, and I truly tell them don't do that. Because these type of petitions, even some lawyers don't know how to do. So if you're gonna do it and rely on something like ChatGPT or whatever it is that you're gonna be using, you're going to be at a disadvantage because the adjudications officer that that USCIS has, the officers are very well trained, and they have to follow certain procedures, and they have a lot of control over your future. So why not have that in your quiver, and just make sure that you have an attorney who's doing everything for you, and making sure that you have the best case to present to the government for you to be able to get the most out of your case and the most out of your money. So why are things changing? We've been, as I said, I've been doing this almost 15 years now. I myself went through the process from all the way from being here on a student visa all the way to becoming a citizen. If things have been, quite streamlined before, right? If you submitted something and the government was missing a piece of paper, what they would do is send you what's called a request for evidence. They're taking away requests for evidences right now. They're becoming more rare. And what they're going to be sending is something called a notice of intent to deny. And a notice of intent to deny, literally, it's much higher burden for you to actually win your case. Because if they think they're going to deny it, you're going to have to prove a lot of things for them to actually reverse it. And if they do deny it, you're going to have to either reapply or go to federal court and all that stuff. And just on an aside, if your case is delayed or anything like that, we're doing those cases now all over the country. We're doing mandamus actions all over the country. So if I don't do it in a certain locality, I will refer you to someone who does it where you live. So if you have a case that's been pending for a very long time because of an RFE, make sure that you call my office, and the number is on the bottom. But if you can't see it, is 1-888-963-7326, and my website is adlo.law. So what does it mean if the request for evidence is gone? The request for evidence means taking away your due process rights, and unfortunately, as I said, with this administration, due process is not something that they watch out for anymore. So while the RFE still exists, you can't really rely on getting one anymore. And what you need to do is what we call in the industry preload all of your petitions before you submit them. So you need to make sure that everything is in there, because they're not, as I said, they're sending notices of intent to deny, not just a request for evidence, because these are going to be gone. Now, if you do get denied, as I said, you do have to resubmit the case, or if you don't agree with them not filing a request for evidence or not sending you a request for evidence, you can also sue in federal court, which could get expensive. So if you are applying for any sort of benefit before immigration, make sure that you preload your application with everything, so they wouldn't even have to ask for anything from you. What I mean by that, there are a lot of lists out there that give you, here's a list of things that you need to put in your green card application, and those are just garbage. And if it's not, some people who are not attorneys put them on there and sell them for $50, $100 for you to use them. But unfortunately, they're not reliable, and the law changes all the time. So if you use something from online, that's what you're gonna get. It's gonna be something from online, and it's not gonna be reliable. But for certain things like a green card application, you're gonna have to put some eligibility paperwork in there. You have to prove that the person who's applying for you is eligible to do it. So for example, if someone is under 21 and they're your son or daughter, they can't apply for a green card for you because they're under 21. A lot of things out there say that they have to be 18, which is not true. You have to, if it's a marriage case, you have to prove that the person applying for you is not married to two people. And I promise you that has happened before with someone who did not hire me, but they came to me after they submitted their application on their own, and they almost got denied because of it. So if you need to put birth certificates, for example, those are very important. You have to put prior divorces. If your son or daughter is applying for you, you have to make sure that they're legitimated, meaning that they were married. You and the parents were married at the time when the person was born. And if they were born out of wedlock, it's going to be an issue. So you need to make sure that you put the right evidence in there. If you don't put the right evidence, as I said, they used to send a request for evidence, but they're literally not doing that anymore, and you have to put that up front. And if you don't know how to do it, hire someone to do it. I promise you, $4,000 for you to make sure that you get your permanent residence is a drop in the bucket for you to be able to get your permanent residence, especially if you've been waiting for a very long time. Hire an attorney. Also, especially because the filing fees are almost $2,500 now, so you're gonna be losing that money if you apply and it doesn't get approved. So make sure that that you are hiring someone who can do it for you, who's going to be able to put everything up front, because requests for evidence are going to be very rare. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about is something called continuous vetting. Now, this idea is not something that is new. You're under vetting until you become a U.S. citizen in the United States. I mean, every time you apply for a higher benefit, you have to prove that you're admissible, and you have to prove that you are eligible for that benefit. The problem is these days and we see it a lot in people who came into the United States as refugees, for example. People who were vetted overseas under the Biden administration and came in under the refugee resettlement program into the United States, think that they're done. I mean, they're refugees. You can just apply for the green card, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen anymore. A lot of we're getting phone calls from people who are refugees that when they apply for their green card, they're getting a lot more questions than they're supposed to, and there is some rumors out there that the government is calling you in if you have refugee status, and they're re-interviewing you to see if you actually qualify for the adjustment status, or if you actually qualified for the refugee status in the first place. And if that happens, with you there without an attorney, it's going to be very bad, because you're gonna end up, if they think that you weren't qualified for, if you weren't qualified for the refugee status to start with, what is going to happen is that they're going to say, well, you can't apply for a green card because the refugee status was not given to you the right way, or you didn't prove fear of persecution at the time, so that's why you can't get your green card now. So if you are subject to continuous vetting, especially if you're a refugee or an asylee and you're applying for those for that a green card, it is going to be an issue. Continuous vetting also means that when you're applying, as I said, moving up the ladder in the United States from being a student on a student visa, for example, to a green card to U.S. citizenship, they're going to be looking at what they did before. Meaning, let's say you came in under a visitor visa and you got married in less than 90 days. You had a fiance here in the United States that you didn't tell them about. They're going to go back to that. And if you lied to them, you misrepresented a material fact, they might actually revoke your green card. And the revocation of the green card means you're going back in front of an immigration judge. You're not going back, but you're going in front of an immigration judge and doing what's called a rescission process, where you have to prove to the immigration judge that you didn't lie. And if you did lie, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to get your status back? So, I've been doing this for a very long time, to where I've seen him do that before. But the scale that they're saying they're going to be doing it at is going to be much broader, meaning they're going to do it to almost everyone who applies for a benefit in the United States. So why am I saying this? If you think there is something in your background that might stop you from going to the next step, I would think, if you don't, for example, if you have a green card, a temporary green card right now, you have to apply for the I-751 to get your permanent green card. That's not an issue. But if it's a selective thing, like applying for naturalization or something like that, I wouldn't apply. Number one, without an attorney. Again, it doesn't have to be me. You need to hire an attorney. Hire anyone. Number one. And number two, you have to be truthful with them, that if there is something on your record that's going to stop you from getting it and you're going to end up in hot water because you applied for it, I would speak to that attorney and be truthful with them and see if there is anything that they can do for you, or if you should actually apply for that naturalization right now, or wait until there is an administration change. I'm not saying that you shouldn't apply for naturalization. Please understand that. But if there is continuous vetting, they have information that you don't know about. Literally, USCIS can log in. They have a Lexis system that they can log in and look at everything that you actually have in the system. So if they go in and find out that you were living at a different address, for example, from your spouse before you got your green card, or you're applying for citizenship when you're under the 3-year rule and you're not living with your spouse at all, that's going to be an issue, and that could land you in removal proceedings. So you don't want to do that. If there's marital problems or anything, now there are ways around all of that. But if you don't tell your attorney that you have all of these things, and you go to the interview and they find out, because of that continuous vetting, they might actually put you in removal proceedings because of it. And you end up not having anything. And trust me, removal proceedings take a very long time, 4 to 5 years. And in those 4 or 5 years, you're not going to be able to leave the country. So think about these things before you apply for a benefit. Because of that continuous vetting, you need to make sure that everything is kosher and everything is done correctly, and you're truthful with the attorney, because I can get you out of something that you did before, but if you don't tell me about that thing, I'm going to have a really hard time defending you if I'm blindsided at the interview. Any attorney would be who's blindsided. I've known attorneys who literally walked out of interviews because their client did not tell them the truth. So make sure you hire an attorney because of that continuous vetting. And if you don't have the money for it, my office has ways for you to borrow the money for you to pay my legal fees and the government fees. So the money should not be an issue with my office. You should be able to do it if you would like to do it. Now, the third thing that I want to talk about is the expansion of presidential authority in immigration, and and this is something that makes this era of practicing immigration law much harder. In old times, we used to get a lot of things. I think the last time we had this much heavy reliance on presidential authority was in 2000. Before Bill Clinton left, they did it with 245I. They actually did it with Congress, but anybody afterwards has done things that has literally used presidential authority to do it. I mean, President George Bush did something that has to do with NCers, for example. President Obama did something that had to do with DACA, DAPA, all of these things under presidential authority. President Trump did things with his first term under presidential authority. The President Biden did something under his presidential authority that actually got knocked down, but he actually used a lot of interpretation around the law for his authority to actually do things without Congress. And President Trump right now, with President Trump, we've seen the biggest expansion of presidential authority when it comes to immigration. I mean, you think about think about CBP, you think about ICE, you think about USCIS, you think about anything that has to do with immigration. President Trump has touched and expanded things without going to Congress. Especially when it comes to immigration court, for example, or benefits that were done under presidential authority before. For example, when President Biden, before he left, he put a program, the I-134 program, for people who are married to U.S. citizens to be able to get green cards here in the United States, but that was taken away. All of these expansion of presidential powers that President Biden did were actually gone on day one, pretty much. So you also see it in the immigration court system, and you see it in front of the BIA. All of these, with the quotas on immigration judges, the quote unquote streamlining. There's a law right now pending that limits your ability to appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals after you lose. The firing of a lot of immigration judges that were not good enough to be immigration judges for this administration, and I can go on and on about this, but this is the reason why I think we need an independent immigration court system, and I think we need a different structure that doesn't allow that much control of the immigration court system by the president. But all of these expansions, especially in these days, and the powers that are not really promulgated clearly in the law that the president has, make things change every 4 years, and sometimes they change for the better, and sometimes they change for the worse. For example, the redefinition, we had a law for a very long time. The interpretation of one section of the law in immigration court, the current administration decided to change the interpretation of one section of the law, and thousands of people are literally ineligible for a bond anymore. And even though we've been interpreting the law for 57 years the same way, and now with one interpretation it has changed. So I am hopeful that things would change after this administration, and I'm hoping that things would change. We'll have some sort of immigration reform very soon. But if you've been watching and a knot is forming in your stomach, if you're worried about your application, if you have complex travel history, which, by the way, if you have anything pending in front of USCIS, my advice to all of my clients is not to leave the country. Just FYI, because of all of the changes that the administration has put together, please don't leave the country. If you have anything, if you're from a country that is on the ban list, this is the moment to get a professional on your side. And as I said, it doesn't have to be me. It could be anyone in your vicinity. You can actually have someone, you can have someone local helping you. But remember, I can practice all over the country. So if you need help, I am more than willing to help you. But you need to make that phone call, because the Bar Association doesn't allow me to call you. But just hoping that things will be okay is not a legal strategy, really. Don't wait for that denial letter to say, oh, I need to do something about it. Hire someone in advance. And if you need to get in touch with me, as I said, my phone number is 888-963-7326. You can go on my website, adlo.law, and you can actually schedule an appointment with me from there. Or you can chat with us. The chat is open 24/7, and our phone lines are open 24/7. So if you want to call and schedule some time to speak to us, I'll be more than happy to do it. We are booked for a couple of weeks, but if you need a same day appointment or a weekend appointment, we can accommodate that. So don't wait until you get the denial. And as I said, trust me, it's worth it. Have a good attorney, have a fighter, and if there is anything that if there's one word that I could describe myself with, it's a fighter. And I've won cases that I was told that they were impossible to win. So if you need a fighter, I'm your guy. If you need your own fighter, please hire someone. That's the whole point. Please hire someone. Okay? So what should you do, and how should you protect your case right now? The government has done a couple of things that are actually good, and they started under Biden. I don't know where we're going to be moving with that. But if you're applying for a benefit, especially if you're applying for naturalization and you forgot to put something in there, or even if you're applying for a green card and you forgot to put something in there, the government's giving you an online portal right now to actually submit evidence. So if you forgot to put a birth certificate in there, just go ahead and upload it. And you can upload evidence at any time you want. But before you do that, as I said, you need to preload everything. You need to put everything up front in the application so they wouldn't have to look for it when you actually submit it. The other thing that you need to worry about is there something in your background that stops you from getting the benefit? You would be amazed by the amount of people that I get every week that say, well, I had this arrest before, but it doesn't matter because I had it expunged. But expungement doesn't mean it's gone for immigration purposes. Yeah, the FBI can't see it, but USCIS can. And if you don't have that criminal record in your application, it's going to be a problem. So what I want you to do is sit down on a piece of paper and write down the answers to all the question on all the good moral character or the admissibility questions that you have, and write down and see if you need to answer them yes or no. And if there is something on there that you have to answer yes to, and it's a criminal thing or anything like that, or if you had a prior denial for a green card, you need to say, oh, I need help. So have an audit of your own history, because that will help the attorney that you hire. If you have something on your background, you need to worry about it, because that might end up might end you up in removal proceedings. And I promise they're not fun. I love fighting them, but they're not fun. And as I said, you're stuck in the United States for the whole time you're in removal proceedings, because you will be self-deporting if you actually leave while you're in removal proceedings. So don't do that, please. And a part of that is, as I said, take a piece of paper and write down in a meticulous way. Write down anything, good or bad, that might actually change the result of the case. And as I said, audit. Write down if anything that you need to worry about before you submit the case. And if there is something, on your background, as I said, we need to speak to an attorney, because again, that continuous vetting, those things, RFEs are gone, all of these, notice of intent to deny. You need to make sure that you're doing things right, or you're going to be in hot water if you actually end up having something that you shouldn't have. Okay? The last thing is, there is no such thing as a white lie. You would not believe how many people I have represented that when I ask them, have you ever, one of the questions on a green card application, for example, is, have you ever lied to an immigration officer to get a benefit? They say, I just forgot to tell them that I had a fiance here in the United States when we got married, and that's how I'm getting my green card. Well, guess what? That's not really a white lie. That's a lie. That's a black lie. It's a bold black lie. Because if you get the wrong officer interviewing you, you're going to you're going to be in trouble. And the reason why I say that is, there's nothing that adjudication officers anywhere in the country that hate more than people lying to them. And you might think it's a white lie, it's nothing, we shouldn't worry about it. But if it goes to you applying for a benefit in the United States, and you wouldn't have gotten into the country without that white lie, then you're going to have a problem. And the problem is, right now, even though that you thought it was a white lie, it might actually send you to removal proceedings. They're not asking for RFEs anymore. They might ask you for a 601 waiver, but the officer might say, if you're out of status and you lied, I'm going to send you in front of an immigration judge and have him deal with it. So make sure that you are being truthful with your attorney, please. And just the last thing I'm going to say is, the way that immigration cases are being handled is very bad. It truly is. I've had cases. I've never had this before. I've never had to sue the government for cases that are pending for 3 years on green cards, and unfortunately these days I have to, because I know they're not moving. They're not moving in the right pace, and they're not doing what they're supposed to. But what you need to worry about is, all of these things that I told you about are designed to make it harder for you to become a part of this country. And in order for that not to happen, you need someone to convince the government that you're worthy of staying in the country. And unfortunately, the government will always think about you in a skeptic way, because, well, you would say and do anything to get that benefit. But if you have someone who's on your side, putting together the evidence that you need to have in there, making sure that everything is in there to actually show you in a good light, why wouldn't you do it? The system is harder. I tell you that. And again, I have never seen it this way in my practice, ever. But if you hire the right attorney, you're going to have a good chance. I can't guarantee that you're going to win, but you're going to have a good chance. And as I said, I didn't call my office the American Dream Law Office for nothing. I called it because I help people get their American dream, and whatever it is, we work very hard to do it. So if you need to speak to us, if you're, even if you need a second opinion about what your lawyer is doing, as I said, our phone lines are open 24/7. The number is 888-963-7326. If you're calling us from outside the United States, the WhatsApp number is +1 727 518 4353. If you go to adlo.law, you can learn about me and learn about everything that we do and the success stories we've had. And by the way, I have a book getting released tomorrow about removal defense and all that, and the link is going to be on the website tonight. If you need anything, I'm your resource, just like I'm the resource for a lot of the media organizations. If you need anything, let us know. Subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook page. I need the watch hours, so if you know any of your friends who like to learn about immigration, please share my channels with them. And I will see you all next time. You all take care.